Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to pick out what I think is the main point of interest from Home Secretary Suella Braverman's speech at the second right-wing loony convention this week, the National Conservatism Conference, as she attacked her boss's policy direction in a move clearly designed to position her with a shot at becoming the next leader of the opposition. She used her speech to argue against fratricide on the right wing as she delivered a fratricidal speech attacking her own side, essentially saying, stop the infighting. Are you going to stop the infighting? No, I'm allowed to do infighting. It's the rest of you who shouldn't. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So yesterday morning, the National Conservatism Conference kicked off. They decided to host it on weekdays, presumably because it's really aimed at Tory scroungers, because they know that most people with a proper job would be at work. Indeed, I gather that they also barred journalists who are identified as being from left-wing outlets from the event. Not sure what they wanted to hide. The speeches were all being filmed for public consumption after all. And although I discussed one element of the speech from Jacob Rees-Mogg yesterday, the real speaker of interest for me was Suella Braverman. I mean, after all, senior member of the government, very senior member of the government. I said after my video on the Johnson Cult conference at the weekend that unlike with Doris and Patel, I didn't expect Braverman to personally attack Sunak. She's in his cabinet and it'll, in theory, do her future ambitions no good by being seen to be disloyal. Shouldn't really be possible to attack Sunak until it's clear it's time for him to fall. That being said, if she thought she was treading the line between undermining Sunak and pretending not to undermine Sunak, then she was incredibly clumsy. Her entire speech was so clearly a pitch to be the Conservative leader that even Tory MPs were privately saying so. In fact, one, I think, had told a journalist that Sunak needs to lay down the law with Braverman. Good joke. He's too weak, isn't he? And don't get me wrong, I think Sunak absolutely wants to sack Braverman, and not just because she's a loose cannon. But he'll only be able to do so if he thinks her support base within the parliamentary party has shrunk down. He'll know that if he sacks her, she'll be even more unhinged. But he does need to find a way to clip her wings, because the problem for Sunak is there's a sense in which it's in Braverman's personal interest for the Tories to lose the next election very badly. That is an incredibly unfortunate situation. You want really all of your party's MPs to be fully aligned with the interests of the party. Then they'll pull together. Then they'll work as a team. You absolutely need your most senior cabinet ministers having their interests aligned with the success of the party. But the particular situation the Conservatives find themselves in, where they're almost certain to lose the next election, is that Braverman gains if the Tories lose as many MPs as possible. So Sunak needs to threaten her with something that aligns her interests with his. Tricky, but that is part of the dark arts of political leadership, and Sunak had best learn quickly, or else he will quickly lose control over the election campaign long before it starts. But I want to discuss the general mess that the Conservative Party are going to be in after Sunak steps down later this week, perhaps tomorrow. Plan it for tomorrow, depends what other news happens. I want to focus here on her policy rhetoric, particularly regarding immigration, because she tried to use the 2019 manifesto as a shield. She claimed that the government has to cut immigration, net immigration, because it was in the manifesto. Now, my first thought was, well, hang on a minute. What the actual manifesto said was that the Conservatives would continue to grant asylum and support refugees fleeing persecution. So she either wants to stand by the manifesto or she doesn't. Which is it? That being said, I then had another little check. Because what did the 2019 manifesto say about cutting net migration? Turns out, nothing at all. The Tory manifesto only talked, when it came to immigration, about this new points-based system. Well, that's been introduced. That is a manifesto promise that's been kept. That was it. That was their entire immigration policy. So what Braverman was essentially doing was conning people into believing the manifesto said a thing, which it didn't. In other words, she's been a hypocritical liar. But given that Conservative Party members won't mind her revisionism of a document that they could easily go and read for themselves, because they're not going to, are they? Because they approve of her speech. They'll allow their memories to go, oh yeah, it did say that, didn't it? No, it didn't. No, I think it did. It's self-defeating, though, because it creates problems for Sunak and, by extension, the Conservatives. Sunak is now going to be asked about every policy that Braverman discussed in her speech, especially those related to Home Office influence and legislation, because she is, after all, the Home Secretary. When the Home Secretary discusses any policy related to the Home Office, you have to take it as official government policy. So if she talks about a particular policy relating to, say, asylum or immigration, it's government policy until the government say, no, it's not. So, and then they'll ask them, so why is the Home Secretary saying it? So journalists will ask Sunak if the policy's changed, and they can't be fobbed off with a non-answer. In fact, even before Braverman had delivered her speech, because she'd leaked a bit of it, Downing Street was having to downplay differences of opinion between the Prime Minister and his Home Secretary, you know, as a result of the content which everyone knew she was going to be presenting. Downing Street confirmed that Braverman would be giving her speech on behalf of the government, essentially stating that what she says is government policy. They further said that it's the government's aim to both grow the economy while cutting immigration. I don't think there's too many people left believing this unicorn. You can cut immigration or you can grow the economy. You cannot do both. The Conservatives, spearheaded by the likes of Braverman, are still insisting that there are enough people living in Britain to do the jobs necessary to achieve high growth. There are not. They used to say immigrant workers weren't necessary, they were just taking jobs from the British. Well, now that they've introduced their Brexit immigration rules, the jobs are there, vacant, waiting for this mass of displaced British workers. Nowhere to be found. So what's their argument now? Braverman said, oh, probably not trained for them. We need to be retraining people to be HGV drivers, butchers and fruit pickers. I mean, sure, there's a lot of training required for butchers and HGV drivers, but the government are doing nothing to retrain people for these professions. But fruit pickers, retrain to be fruit pickers, where's the course for that then? You don't train to be a fruit picker, you rock up and get the job. Yes, you will get better with experience. Like any unskilled job, you develop skills and get better. But it's not a job with a specific training program or qualification required. What a stupid thing to say. Why don't we have enough fruit pickers, Home Secretary? Why don't we have enough fruit pickers? Because not enough people are trained for it. What response is there to such a statement other than, you're an idiot, get out of government this minute? But Downing Street were essentially echoing the same line. Oh yes, we totally think that employers should be training more British people instead of relying on foreign labour. I thought Tories understood market forces. If employers are not currently doing so at the levels needed, then the government needs to step in. Either allow them access to the foreign workers that they want, or if you insist it's not necessary, you train people. Take some responsibility. But no, they just want to insist that their moronic ideas will work, but it's up to others to make them work. Only in politics and journalism do you get away with insisting that your ideas are absolutely right, but that it is for others to prove it. I had to laugh when someone put it to Sunak's spokesperson that the government might just tell farmers to pay more for fruit pickers. You know, if they want more staff, well, shouldn't you tell farmers to pay them more then? Because here's the situation. These are the facts of the matter. There are huge shortages. There's lots of shortages around the country, but for harvesting crops, there's huge shortages, right? Undeniable. Government insists there's people in this country to do those jobs. So then isn't the problem that those jobs are not attractive enough? How do you make a job more attractive? Pay it more. The spokesperson replied, it's not for the government to tell businesses what the right salary to pay their staff is. So you think, well, hang on, let's get this straight. It's not for the government to tell businesses what to pay their staff, but it is for the government to tell businesses that they need to pay for expensive training programs. Is that about right? Make your mind up. Is it your job to tell businesses how to allocate their funds or isn't it? Can't have one or the other. Besides, the Conservatives keep saying how low unemployment is. Because that's the other thing. We've got these clear shortages, labour shortages. The government keep telling us unemployment's like really low. It's virtually zero. In realistic terms, it's basically zero, they're saying. Because although, yes, there are unemployed people, they're in places where the vacancies aren't. So effective unemployment is as good as zero. That's what the government insists. But labour shortages are high. How are we going to join those ends up without migrant labour? Do you know what they're saying? Have more babies. See, this is the Tories. That's what they've been saying now. Oh, people need to have more babies. Well, it takes 9 months to pop a baby out if you get it right first time. Are you going to send them into the fields? What are they going to do to reach the high stuff? Swing their umbilical cord around it? Lasso? Ridiculous. And this is the Tories, isn't it? It's the Tories. Oh, we shouldn't have like immigrants because we're full. We're too full. We're too full. Oh, no, we're actually not full because people need to have more babies. As for Braverman saying there's no reason why we can't build a high-skilled, high-wage economy that is less dependent on low-skilled foreign labour, that's what she said, her policies do the opposite. Our points-based immigration system specifically makes sure that British workers are paid less. How, you may ask? Because the points essentially value wages. So let's say a foreign worker from anywhere in the world, because these don't just apply to people from the EU, anywhere in the world, they apply for a high-wage job in Britain. They easily get the points because the points favour high-wage jobs. So if it pays a good salary, then you have no problem getting the points for it to get the visa. It's basically automatic. You can get it. But it's impossible to get, or almost impossible to get a work visa for low-wage job. You have to be on a specific list. Now, what's the result of this? That British workers compete with the entire world, not just Europe, the entire world, for well-paid jobs because anyone, anywhere in the world can easily get a visa to come and work in the UK for well-paid jobs. The point's not a problem. Because our immigration system doesn't stop any foreign worker anywhere in the world getting those jobs. Unless, I suppose, we have specific sanctions against individual countries. But it leaves a load of lower paid jobs vacant. So what the government's immigration system does is it forces British workers into the low paid jobs because they are the only ones that can take those jobs. In addition, there is no funding going into the retraining that government ministers keep insisting that we need. The inevitable consequence of the Tories' Brexit policies is to create a low-skilled, because they're not funding skills training, low-wage, because they're forcing British workers into low-paid jobs, economy that is much more dependent on foreign labour, because in actual fact, because we're not developing those skills, for the skills jobs, we need people from countries where they are training for those skills. But because they refuse to allow the foreign labour in to meet our production needs, our economy stagnates. So it's also a low growth economy. And because our economy has stagnated and they've already pared public services to the bone, they can't cut them anymore. And they won't let the ultra rich pay any tax. Oh, even Shell was saying, wasn't it? Oh, we should pay more tax. No, you shouldn't. You've paid enough. But we haven't paid anything. Yeah, that's enough. So they have to raise the rate of tax for ordinary workers. So what we have, not just by chance, not just because of various things, what we have as a direct result of Tory policy is a low skill, low wage, low growth, high tax, high inflation economy. They didn't stick that on the side of the bus, did they? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. Until next time, I'll see you later.